I never imagined my husband's funeral would be the moment my life split cleanly into a before and an after. The church smelled of lilies and damp coats, and the air had that strange, heavy quiet people mistake for respect. I sat in the second row, hands folded, trying to look composed. After 29 years of marriage, the least I could do was sit upright. When my son, Matthew, walked up to the podium, I pressed my palms together. He'd always been calm, measured, the kind of man who could explain a broken heart like a math equation. Today, though, his voice trembled. "There's someone," he said, "without whom my father wouldn't have made it through the last years of his life." For a foolish second, I thought he meant me. But then, a woman in a navy dress stood up from the front row. Her name was Clara Rowan. I knew her only as my husband's project advisor at his company. I remembered her from a work dinner years ago. Elegant, poised, the kind of woman who never had a hair out of place. She placed a hand on her heart as Matthew continued. She was his greatest support. People turned toward her. Some smiled sympathetically. A few whispered. Clara dabbed the corner of her eye, and when she settled back into her seat, her shoulder gently brushed my son's. That was when my pulse stuttered. When the service ended, I waited for Matthew to walk over to me, but he drifted toward her like it was instinct. She touched his arm and murmured, "He would be proud of you." My son, my only child, looked at her with a softness I had not seen from him in years. I stood there feeling like a mismatched piece in a puzzle I had once belonged to. Hours later, at the will reading, the lawyer's voice carried the same cold tone as the tiled floor beneath my feet. "The primary beneficiary of Mr. Adrian Hale's estate," he said, "is Miss Clara Rowan." My name wasn't there, not even as an afterthought. Clara pressed her hand to her lips in feigned shock, but the triumph flickering behind her eyes was unmistakable. Matthew didn't flinch. He didn't ask a single question. He simply accepted the decision as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When the meeting ended, I walked out into the hallway. My hands were shaking. My marriage, my home, my stability turned into a footnote. No rage, no screaming, just a hollow quiet that stretched into every breath. What I didn't realize then was that the funeral wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning, because by the next morning, I would discover the first clue that Adrian's death and Clara's role in his life were far from what it seemed. The next morning, the house felt foreign, too neat, too silent. I walked into Adrian's study, somewhere I rarely entered, mostly out of respect, partly out of habit. His desk was always spotless, except today a single envelope lay on the leather blotter. My name was written on the front in his handwriting. Inside was a letter, short, too simple. "Mara, if you find this, I hope you can forgive what I couldn't say aloud. There are things you don't know, things I hid to protect you. A. Protect me from what? The betrayal? The humiliation? The other woman?" I read the letter 3 times, and the more I stared at it, the more I realized something. Adrian never wrote vague notes. He was a man of details, lists, dates, bullet points. This letter felt staged. That's when I noticed the back of the envelope had been resealed. Someone had opened it before me. Someone like Clara. I rummaged through his drawers looking for anything that would explain the mess he left behind. Between old receipts and insurance papers, I found a USB drive taped to the bottom of a drawer. Adrian used these constantly for work. Why hide this one? I plugged it into my laptop. The drive was encrypted, password protected. Not unusual, but the password prompt had a label, Project Meridian,
confidential. Adrian never mentioned anything called Meridian. I called his former colleague, Oliver, an accountant who had worked with Adrian for over a decade. His voice trembled when he picked up. "Mara, I'm so sorry. I wanted to reach out sooner." "Oli," I said, trying to keep steady. "Do you know anything about a project called Meridian?" Silence. Then he exhaled sharply. "He didn't tell you, did he?" "Tell me what?" "That project? Clara was in charge of it, and there were financial irregularities, big ones. Adrian covered for her." My breath caught. "Covered how?" "Mara, it's complicated. Look, if he left anything behind about Meridian, you need to be careful. It isn't just a project." "What is it then?" "Proof," he whispered, "of something illegal." My hands went cold. If what Oliver said was true, then Clara wasn't just a mistress. She was a liability, one Adrian had been protecting. And maybe the reason she inherited everything wasn't love. Maybe it was leverage. Before I could ask more, Oliver's voice lowered. "I shouldn't be talking about this. Please, forget we spoke." He hung up. But I knew one thing now. Clara's place at that funeral wasn't earned, it was engineered. And what I found next wouldn't just expose Clara, it would force me to question whether Adrian's death really was an accident at all.
I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara standing in the front row, my son at her side, as if she'd always belonged there, as if I were the intruder. But now, there was something else gnawing at me. Project Meridian. If Adrian had encrypted a USB drive, hid it, and left a vague letter behind, he wasn't protecting Clara. He was protecting me from what she might do. The next morning, I returned to his study. This time, I wasn't searching like a grieving widow. I was searching like someone who had just realized she'd lived with a stranger. His desk chair still carried the faint scent of cedar and ink. I sat down and pulled open the bottom drawer again, feeling along the wooden grooves. Something felt off. A tiny raised bump beneath the drawer liner. I peeled the liner back. Another USB drive. This one, unlabeled. My heart crawled into my throat as I plugged it into the computer. No password this time. A single folder popped up. CR Archive. CR. Clara Rowan. Inside were dozens of scanned documents, bank transfers, expense reports, internal memos. But what made my stomach drop was a photograph dated September 14th, 5 months before Adrian died. Adrian sat in a hospital bed, pale, an IV in his arm. Clara stood beside him, smiling, but not at him, at the camera, as if she knew this moment mattered. Below the photo was a scanned medical bill. Admitted after severe reaction to unverified medication. Medication? Adrian had never told me he was hospitalized, and if he'd reacted to something, who gave it to him? Before I could process, my phone buzzed. It was Matthew. I answered quickly. "Are you all right?" His voice was clipped. "Clara told me you've been digging around in Dad's things." "Matthew, your father kept secrets, big ones." "Stop," he snapped. "Clara is grieving. You're making this harder on everyone." I froze. She's grieving? Matthew, she took everything your father owned. Because he trusted her, he shot back. I'm angry, I get it, but don't make up stories to make her look bad. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. my own son, thought I was the villain. For a moment, grief washed over me again. Hot, overwhelming, familiar. But then something shifted. No, not this time. Not again. I clicked through the rest of the files. One email jumped out. From A.Hale to C.Rowan. Subject: Meridian Audit. If this continues, I can't shield you anymore. The auditors are asking questions. We need to talk before someone gets hurt. Someone gets hurt. My pulse buzzed. Was that what happened to Adrian? Did he threaten to expose Clara? Did she silence him? Or did he try to run before she could? The final file was a voicemail recording. I pressed play. Adrian's voice came through, unsteady, frightened. "Mara, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know what else to do. I think I'm in danger." The recording cut off abruptly. The room spun. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just an affair. This was something darker. I stared at Adrian's voicemail until my eyes blurred. I think I'm in danger. Danger from what? From whom? From Clara? From the company? Every version of my husband I thought I knew collapsed into dust. I needed help. Someone who understood the industry. Someone who wouldn't dismiss me the way Matthew had. The first name that came to mind was Nora Penn, an investigative consultant Adrian once introduced me to at a company gala. She was sharp, discreet, and known for digging into things that didn't want to be found. I emailed her the files, just the safer ones, not the encrypted Meridian folder. I didn't want to overwhelm her or scare her off. But I also didn't want to scare myself. She replied within an hour. "Meet me today, 4 p.m., Waldron Cafe." I arrived early. The air smelled of cinnamon and ground espresso, but my nerves were louder than anything around me. When Nora walked in, she looked exactly as I remembered. Sleek hair, no-nonsense posture, eyes that saw through people. "You look tired," she said honestly, sitting down. "It's been a long month," I whispered. She opened her laptop. "I reviewed the files you sent. Mara, this isn't just an affair or a property dispute. Your husband was covering up financial crimes." I swallowed. Crimes Clara committed? Possibly, but I also see Adrian's name tied to approvals and transfers. If Clara goes down, he might have gone down with her. She paused. And someone who's cornered is dangerous. My throat tightened. "Do you think his death?" "Accidents are convenient," she said gently. For a moment, neither of us spoke. My world felt like a house slowly tilting on its foundation, everything sliding into new positions. Nora closed her laptop. "Who else has these files?" "Just you." "Good. Keep it that way." She leaned in. "And be careful around your son." The comment stung. "Matthew? He's confused, hurt, but he's my son." She arched her eyebrow. "Clara has influence over him. People in grief cling to whoever feeds them the simplest explanation." I knew she was right, but hearing it still hurt. As we wrapped up, Nora said something that lodged itself into my spine. "The moment someone lies to you this deeply, assume the next lie is already on its way." I left the cafe with her words repeating in my head. By the time I got home, dusk had settled over the neighborhood. The hallway felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that doesn't belong to the weather but to the atmosphere of a life unraveling. I checked my email. A new message. From Clara. Subject: Stop.
The body of the email was short. "You're making a mistake, Mara. Let things be." My hands shook. How did she know? How did she know I was digging? I looked at the clock. 8:14 p.m. 2 minutes later, I heard a car pull up outside. I peered through the curtain. Matthew. He stepped out, shoulders tense, and marched up to the door. I opened it before he knocked. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "The digging, the accusations. You're acting paranoid." I stared at him. "Did Clara ask you to come?" He looked away. That was answer enough. "She cares about Dad's memory." No, she cared about her secrets. "Matthew," I said carefully, "there are things you don't know, things your father hid." He tensed. "Clara told me you'd say that." Something inside me cracked. Clara wasn't just taking my husband. She wasn't just taking my inheritance. She was taking my son's mind, too. I stepped back. "Maybe you should go." His jaws tightened. For a second, I thought he would hug me, apologize, soften. But he didn't. He walked away. As his car disappeared down the street, the house felt smaller than ever. But I wasn't done learning truths, because the next morning, Nora called me with the discovery that changed everything about Adrian's final days and Clara's true intentions. Nora called me at 7:12 a.m. sharp, too early for anything casual. "Are you awake?" she asked. My stomach tightened. "Yes, what happened?" "I went deeper into the files," she said. "There's something you need to see, and something you need to understand." She sounded different, not calm and controlled like yesterday, but tight-voiced, urgent. "Tell me," I whispered. "Not over the phone. Come to my office in an hour." When Nora said something like that, you didn't argue. I dressed quickly and drove downtown through rush hour traffic, feeling like the city was moving faster than my thoughts. When I reached her building, she buzzed me in immediately. Her office was small but tidy, walls lined with case binders, shelves of neatly labeled folders. She closed the blinds as soon as I entered. "This isn't paranoia anymore, Mara," she said. "This is fact." She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a digital archive of hospital reports, ones I had never seen before. I frowned. "What am I looking at?" "Your husband's medical history for the last 18 months. "That can't be right," I said. "Adrian wasn't sick. He had routine checkups, but not those." Nora tapped the screen. "These ones." The documents were from a private clinic, not Adrian's usual doctor. The admissions showed 2 ER visits for dizziness, 1 for severe chest pressure, 1 for memory lapses. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. "Because he didn't want you knowing what caused it." My breath stalled. "What caused it?" She clicked to a toxicology panel. Traces of a medication Adrian wasn't prescribed. Repeatedly. In increasing doses. Medication I had never heard of. And then she opened another file. Security footage from the clinic's parking lot. I didn't know where she got it, and I didn't ask. Adrian staggered out of the clinic doors, and Clara walked beside him, supporting him by the arm. I felt the blood drain from my face. "And it gets worse," Nora murmured. She played a second clip, recorded 2 weeks after the first. Adrian and Clara again, same clinic. But this time, he looked angry. He pulled his arm away from her. She grabbed it back. "You're hurting me," he said. The audio was faint but clear enough. Clara leaned close, whispering something. Adrian flinched, like he was afraid. A tremor rippled down my spine. "Do you understand what this means?" Nora said, softly. I nodded slowly. She didn't just take advantage of him, she controlled him. Nora folded her hands. "I think he tried to cut ties," and she panicked. "And the car accident?" I whispered. Nora didn't answer. She didn't have to. We both knew what she was implying. She changed tabs and opened a phone screenshot. This was found in the recovered data logs from Adrian's work laptop. It was a draft text message, unsaved, unsent. Matthew, I need to talk to you. Clara isn't who you think she is. I'm ending things. If anything happens to me, tell your mother. The timestamp? The night before he died. My chest tightened. Heat rose behind my eyes. He tried to warn us. He tried to warn me. He died before he could. Nora put a gentle hand on my shoulder. Mara, this wasn't an affair gone wrong. This was someone manipulating, isolating, and possibly harming him. I felt something shift inside me. Not grief, not heartbreak, resolve. Clara hadn't destroyed just my marriage. She had destroyed my husband's life, and she was still walking around, smiling.
I arrived home from Nora's office, with my heart pounding in that slow, heavy way grief does when it mutates into something stronger. I wasn't numb anymore. I wasn't confused. I was bracing myself for whatever came next. I didn't have to wait long. Because 30 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. 3 quick taps, 1 hesitant one. Not Clara's boldness, not Matthew's anger. When I opened it, Oliver stood there, the accountant who'd warned me to be careful. His tie was askew, his eyes tired like he hadn't slept in days. "Mara," he said, swallowing hard. I shouldn't be here, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Come in," I said. He stepped inside slowly, nervously, his hands clasped together as if holding himself in place. He refused coffee. He refused to sit. He just stood in the middle of my living room and took a deep, shaky breath. "I know what happened with Adrian. I know more than I told you." I felt my pulse thudding behind my ribs. "Then tell me everything." He nodded. "Your husband came to me 6 months ago. He looked scared. Said something was wrong at the company, something involving Clara." My throat tightened. "What exactly?" "She'd been siphoning money through the Orion division. Small amounts at first, but then larger ones. And she forged approvals using Adrian's credentials. He found out too late. So he covered for her." "He tried to," Oliver said. "But when he confronted her, she threatened to expose him. Said she'd make it look like he embezzled the money. She had emails, documents she created, fake threads, enough to bury him if she wanted." My skin prickled. "She blackmailed him." Oliver nodded miserably. "He didn't think you'd believe him. He thought he'd dragged you into something he couldn't get out of. And..." He paused. "That's when the health issues started." I closed my eyes. The clinic visits. Yes, and he told me he suspected Clara was slipping him something. I opened my eyes sharply. "What did you just say?" He hesitated, and that was all the answer I needed. Matthew. The son I raised. The boy who used to cling to my hand when he was scared. The man who now protected the woman who destroyed our family. "Oliver?" I said, my voice barely audible. "Is there more?" He nodded, slowly, sadly. "The night before Adrian died, your husband told me he was going to expose everything to the board. He said he was done letting her control him." A cold shiver crept across my shoulders. "And then," he whispered, "he said something I will never forget." "What?"
If something happens to me, don't let Clara tell my story." He paused, voice breaking, and the next morning, he was dead. I pressed my shaking hands to my mouth. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't fate. It wasn't bad breaks. I finally saw the truth for what it was. Adrian didn't die because of a crash. He died because he tried to leave Clara. And when I decided to confront Clara myself, I had no idea that she would beat me to it by crashing into my life in the most violent way imaginable.
I barely slept after Oliver left. Every piece of evidence, every confession, every detail swirled together into one terrifying truth. Clara didn't just manipulate Adrian, she cornered him, controlled him, and when he tried to escape, he died. By sunrise, I was done being cautious. I knew what I had to do next. I gathered the printed files, Nora's reports, screenshots from the USBs, everything. My plan was to take them straight to Nora so we could prepare a legal case before Clara sensed what was coming. But I never even made it to my car, because Clara came to me first. At 8:03 a.m., as I walked down my porch steps, a silver SUV screeched into my driveway so fast I jumped back. The door slammed open. Clara stood there, hair perfect, lips pressed into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Mara," she said brightly, "we need to talk." My fingers tightened around my folder. "I have nothing to say to you." "Oh, but I think you do," she replied, eyes glinting. She stepped closer, heels clicking like a metronome counting down danger. "You've been going through Adrian's things and speaking to people you shouldn't." My stomach dropped. She knew. She knew everything. I stayed calm. I'm his wife. I'm allowed to go through his things. "Oh, honey," Clara laughed softly. "Adrian didn't trust you. He trusted me." A hot wave of rage surged through me. "Trusted you to poison him? To blackmail him? To drain his accounts?" Her eyes sharpened. "Careful now." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You be careful. I know what you did." Her face didn't flinch, but her hand twitched. A tiny crack in her composure. "You're spiraling," she said. "I feel sorry for you. Really, I do." I adjusted my coat. "Matthew told me you might react this way." My blood glowed cold. "Matthew?" "Yes," she said breezily. "He came by last night. He told me about your paranoia. He's worried about you, you know?" The ground beneath me felt unsteady. My own son feeding her information, giving her access to my thoughts, my reactions, my weaknesses. Clara's voice dipped into a purr. "You raised him to be loyal, and he is, just not to the person you expected." I wanted to scream, cry, break something, but I kept my expression stone still. Clara slid into her SUV, revved the engine, and sped away. I stood frozen in my driveway until the wind finally broke the spell. My hand shook as I looked down at the folder of evidence. If I stayed quiet, she'd win. If I fought back, she'd come for me. But then I remembered Adrian's voicemail. If something happens to me, don't let Clara tell my story. My fear turned into something sharper. I wasn't just fighting for myself now. I was fighting for the truth. And in part 8, the truth finally erupts, because everything I discovered, everything I exposed, led to a showdown that none of us could walk away from unchanged.
After Clara's threat, I didn't go inside my house. I didn't sit down. I didn't cry. I drove straight to Nora's office with the folder of evidence pressed against my chest like a shield. She opened the door before I knocked. "You look pale. What happened?" Clara came to my house, I said, stepping inside. She threatened me. She knows everything. She knows I'm digging. She knows Matthew is talking to her. Nora froze. Her expression hardened. Then we don't have time. Sit. We're finishing this today. She began assembling everything: hospital reports, financial records, Oliver's testimony, the voicemail, the unsent text message, the board, the auditors, her own investigative contact. Everyone would get a copy. "This is enough," she said. "Not enough for a murder charge yet, but enough to destroy her reputation, her career, and her access to anyone she can manipulate." "And Matthew?" I whispered. "We handle that separately." She hit send to all with a click that echoed like a gunshot. There was no undoing it now. The board meeting. 2 days later, Nora called. "They've scheduled an emergency review of the Meridian project. They want you there." My stomach twisted. "Me? You're the only one with the full perspective." When I walked into the boardroom, Clara was already there. Smooth, polished, perfect. Matthew sat beside her, jaw tight, but his eyes flickered with uncertainty when he saw me. Clara's gaze sliced toward me. "You shouldn't be here." I took my seat. I'm exactly where I need to be. The board president cleared his throat. "We received concerning evidence regarding Project Meridian and Mr. Hale's final months." Clara's smile didn't break, but the muscles in her jaw twitched. File after file was displayed. Transfers, forged approvals, clinic visits, the photo of Adrian looking afraid, his voicemail, his unsent text. With each slide, Clara's facade cracked further. "This is absurd," she said, voice rising. "Adrian trusted me. He depended on me." "Did he depend on you, or did he fear you?" I asked quietly. For the first time, her mask slipped completely. "How dare you?" she hissed, leaning forward. "You weren't there. You weren't enough for him." Matthew flinched beside her. I met his eyes. "Your father was trying to leave her. He tried to warn you. He tried to warn me. He didn't die because of an accident. He died because he was alone with someone he finally realized he needed to escape." Clara exploded. "You think I killed him? You think I—" "Enough," the board president snapped. "We have more witnesses." Oliver entered the room. Clara turned white. He spoke calmly, firmly. "Adrian told me he feared Clara would ruin his life if he exposed her. He said she was controlling him, and he said he felt unsafe." The room went dead silent. Clara's breathing turned ragged. She grabbed her purse as if searching for something, then froze. Security guards stepped forward. She wasn't being arrested, not yet, but she was being removed. Disgraced, exposed, cornered, just like she had cornered Adrian. Her eyes locked onto mine as they let her out. Venomous, wild, but defeated. "This isn't over," she spat. "It is," I whispered. "For him, for me, for Matthew." The aftermath. Later, after everyone had left, Matthew approached me. His shoulders sagged. His face looked older than I remembered. "Mom," his voice broke. "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." I touched his cheek the way I used to when he scraped his knees as a boy. "I know," I said softly. "She lied to all of us." Tears welled in his eyes. "Can you forgive me?" "Yes," I said, "but now you have to help me forgive myself." He nodded and pulled me into a hug that felt like it belonged to family again, not strangers divided by a manipulator. Epilogue. Clara lost everything. Her position, her standing, her mask of innocence. The financial investigation is still ongoing. A criminal case may come. But whatever happens, she no longer holds the power she once did. Adrian's memory, once tangled in her lies, finally rests where it belongs, with truth. As for me, I stood on my porch that evening, watching the sky turn gold, and for the first time in a long while, I breathed without fear sitting on my chest. The silence didn't feel like loneliness anymore. It felt like freedom.